Happy Thursday evening to everyone. It's the very last day of September and it's dark outside already. I'm looking out my window. Fall is definitely here. Yeah, it's cooled off and welcome, welcome, welcome. So there's lots to talk about and at least I think there's a lot to talk about, a lot I want to talk about. Hopefully I'll get some feedback and we'll have a discussion. But one never knows, and it's okay because I don't mind listening to my own voice. I've gotten used to it over these 65 years. However, I got some news, things I've been thinking about. So let's start my little segment here. Here we go. Okay, so let me get this little say hi in the chat off here. So please, thank you for joining me this evening. And if you're here with me live, please say hello in the comments so that I can say hello back to you. And if you're watching this in recording, please leave a comment and so I can say thank you for joining me there. Anyway, let's get this off of here. There we go. So something new. Last week I had lunch with my daughter and we just were talking about a lot of different things, and she has a business and it's an online business. And so we just got to talking about, when your business is online, basically you can live anywhere you want to because it's not, you're not tied to a brick and mortar location. So if you could live anywhere you wanted to in the world, where would that be? So that was kind of the discussion that we were having. And when I got home, I got to thinking, I'm only 1 or 2 rent increases away from having to move out of here where I'm living. And so it might be fun to kind of think about where I might want to live other than Sacramento, California. So I've often said that as far as the states in the United States are concerned, there's not another state I'd like to live in. I mean, California, I was born and raised in California, born in Salinas, close to the coast, lived for 10 years in the valley. So, I know about the heat and the dry. I lived up in Auburn for a long time. So the mountains, the cold, sometimes it snowed. And I've been in Sacramento since '78. So, I mean, I really love California. It's just it would take a lot to get me to move out of California. And there's not another state that I'd want to live in. However, since we're just playing with the mind here, I thought, well, what the heck? So I went into my phone. I think it was my phone. Could have been my iPad. I'm not sure. And I put into Google cheapest countries to live in. And I found a website that said the 10 cheapest ones. And the one that looked most attractive as I was going through the list was Costa Rica. Yeah, it looks like a really cool country. And there are a lot of expats that live there and retirees. It's a nice place to retire to. And the cost of living is not bad. So that just started the ball rolling a little bit. And then I was talking to someone a couple of days ago, I think it was, and I got to thinking, well, what about a cheap place to live in the United States? Let's just, I set aside my not liking other states that much. So I did. And the states that came up that are the cheapest states to live in aren't states that I would want to live in at all. And it turns out that California is the second highest expensive. So it's Hawaii, and Hawaii's really up high on the chart. Then you come down and then it's California, and then there's other, then it's New York. And then there's all these other states that trail off. So I'm like, wow, I don't know about that. So then I got to thinking, well, what about if I did want to stay in California? What are some of the cheapest places to live in California? And so, Google, I love it. I love Google because I can really do a lot of research there, and there's just a whole ton of information out there. So I put in cheap places to live or retire to in California. And there's all these little websites that came up, and a lot of them are real estate websites and travel websites, and their information, I think, is a little bit biased because they want to sell you something, or they're not really looking out for the consumer who wants to live cheaply. However, I was able to find that Eureka is actually a very affordable place to live, a lot more affordable than Sacramento is. And my son spends a lot of time up in that area, Arcata, Eureka, Portola, that whole area up there. He spends a lot of time up there. So that would be cool for me to live that close to him. So Eureka's on the list, right? And then my buddy Dave sent me this article about Mexico and the affordability of Mexico. And I started checking into that. And I found an article, is something like 65-year-old lives in Mazatlan, Mexico. And she pays like $700 or something a month for a 2-bedroom. I'm like, holy mackerel. So I took a look at that. And so now Mexico's on the radar. And Mexico's not that far. So the thing about Costa Rica, it's a beautiful country, but it would put me far away from both my kids. Mexico is not that far away. So I'm looking at things, Eureka is a possibility. That's within California. So that's right up high on my list. And then, Mexico is a close second. And then Costa Rica would be a third, and I was looking at European countries, and there just really isn't a whole lot that I'd be interested in there. So, and that's, once again, it's pretty far away. And, you got to look at, residency requirements and all that good stuff. So, yeah, who knows? Something to play with, something to think about. But if I get serious about it, that means I've got to really seriously downsize, because I wouldn't want to move a whole lot of things with me. I wouldn't want to take a lot of things with me. It's an expense I don't need. If I want to, acquire things while I'm there, that's one thing, but I don't want to take a bunch of stuff. So, that would mean just, having to knuckle down and really sift through what I own and get rid of some things, especially the things I love the most, and that are my books. But it's just a thing. And so what's the problem, right? So that's kind of what I'm toying with these days. That's where I'm at. And so that's kind of fun. The other thing that's up is that on Saturday, I will be launching episode 1 of season 3 for My Life and Welcome to It. Season 3 is entitled Seeking God's Face. And it's carrying on from the end of season 2, which was Chasing After God. And so that's exciting. And I've added a little something to it, which I'll be announcing on my next episode 2. I'll announce this. But I was talking with my buddy David Patterson, who is a podcaster. He has a couple of podcasts, and their podcast is supplemented by something called Patreon, which allows people who listen and find value to contribute, right? So it's not like having ads. I'm not into ads, right? I don't want people to feel obligated to pay. No, I don't like to have them listen to ads. I'm not an ad fan at all. So I've always just shied away from ads. But the Patreon idea, which is voluntary, right? So if someone wants to voluntarily, sign up to pay monthly, that's cool. And if not, that's cool too. And also with the Patreon thing is that there's that opportunity to do extra stuff. So if a person is a patron, then maybe I'll make a special podcast episode, or maybe I'll make a video to upload, or maybe I'll do a Q&A or something of those, something that's special for the patrons. So that's going to start up. I've already made the page, and there's just a good learning curve for me. But that's new. I'm not a big friend of money. It would be great if we were a cashless society. And I don't mean just, credit cards and that sort of thing. But I mean, we don't need money. That would be great. That there's other ways. If we removed the necessity for making money in order to live, then people could do what they wanted to do. They could, really grow as a person in the arts and whatever. If they wanted to be a spelunker, and go explore caves, or, then they could. They wouldn't have to worry about, I got to sit behind a desk and earn my wage, right? So that would be cool. But that's not the reality. But in any event, I'm not sure where I got down that diatribe. So those are some new things for me. It was hard to do because I don't want to deal with the money thing or feel like I don't want to make anyone feel like they're obligated at all. So I want to make sure that when I announce it, that's really clear. It's voluntary. It's not expected. But it would help me to invest in some equipment and, upgrade what I'm doing. So anyway, that's that, right? That's new for me this last week. So it's kind of cool. Adventurous. I like new things, right? New things are cool. So with that being said, let's see here. Let us go to my next little portion of show called a COVID Minute. Dun, 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 dun. COVID Minute. I just made that up. I won't keep that. That's not too fun. Anyway, COVID Minute. So let's take a look at some stuff. I looked at the graph today on the California Capital Public Radio site. I want to share it with you because it's just something to keep an eye on. It's not concerning at this point, but it's something that we don't want to ignore. So here we go. We're looking at this graph here, and the top line is hospitalized patients. And we've been coming down. Every week I talk about how great we're doing. We're bringing the numbers down. And then, oopsie. So from the 28th, where are we here? The 26th, from the 26th to the 29th, we've gone from 263 to 287. So it's 3 days. It's not a trend exactly. And if you look at some of these other peaks, when we come, every once in a while it would have an uptick and then it would come back down. There'd be an uptick and it'd come back down. That's fine. So I'm hoping that this number will start coming down again. We do not want to see this number start trending back up because we've been doing so good, and we're nowhere near out of the woods. So to see this it's a little concerning. I want to keep my eye on it, but I'm not going to lose any sleep at this point. ICU patients, they always tend to lag a little bit. So this is to be expected. The deaths, from what I understand, and I would love to see a third line on here for deaths in Sacramento County. This is just Sacramento County, by the way. I would love to see what that number looks like. It hasn't been trending down yet, but it should be soon because it lags behind everything else. So anyway, that's where we're at. We need to keep an eye on this. We need to keep doing what we're doing. If you haven't been vaccinated, please, please, please get vaccinated. If you are vaccinated, then we just need to be, smart and, wear the mask when we're indoors with a group of people. Wash our hands, use hand sanitizer, keep our distances, encourage our friends that have not been vaccinated to be vaccinated. Super important. Just keep doing what we're doing and see if we can just really flatten it, bring that rascal down, so it's not that big a deal. But that's where we're at right now with the graph. So I just like to keep an eye on it. I can't do anything about it except for talk to people and encourage people. But I just like to be aware so that when I go out in public, I know what's going on for myself. Like so I call it my risk factor. How do we evaluate my risk factor? And that would be, how many hospitalizations are we seeing? How many cases are we seeing? How many vaccinations are happening? Has that plateaued? Exactly what's going on. And the thing right now too, and I think I'm going to call a doctor or figure out somehow, is to I want to get a flu vaccine because I don't want, chances are that I wear my mask a lot and I wash my hands and I, keep my distance and everything. And so chances are that I'm not probably going to come down with the flu this year. I didn't last year. The flu season last year was like minimal, if not non-existent. But we'll see. And the Delta variant is still out there running around. It's the dominant variant right now. It's the one that people are concerned about. But here's sadly, a variant is a mutation. That's all it really is. It's a mutation. I don't know why they don't use the word mutation. Maybe that would scare people if you use the word mutate, but that's what it is, right? And it mutates every time it replicates, it has the opportunity to mutate. The more virus that's out there, the greater virus pool there is, the greater mutations that take place. So what we've seen is, after Delta, we've seen a Lambda, we've seen a Mu, and there's a new one that's out. And so I want to just share that with you. It's not dominant. It's something that they're keeping their eyes on. Hang on a second. Let me just find it here. There you are. And we'll pull that up. And I'm going to make this, let's just fill up the screen here. Get my pretty face off. There we go. And I'm going to make it a little bit larger also. So let's make it larger. Large. There we go. So basically, this is the conclusion, and we'll come down to that. News, medical, life sciences. Here we go. A new SARS-CoV-2 variant, B.1.1.523, capable of escaping immune protections. So COVID-19's technical name is SARS-CoV-2, right? That's COVID-19. All righty. So, and I don't think they've given it I don't see the name for it up here. Is it Mu? I don't know. So it says it continues to evolve owing to mutations, which have given rise to various variants, right? So there's an artist's rendition of what's happening here. So what they're saying is that, you know how let me just put that graphic back up here real quick. The COVID minute graphic, right? Hang on a second. So there's a COVID minute graphic. And if you look at it, you've got the red, that's the cell basically. And then these blue and turquoise, purplish things, those are called spike proteins, right? So that's very important to this discussion here, these spike proteins. So what's happening is that these spike proteins are combining, right? And yeah, a novel combination of various concerning mutations at the spike region. That's where these variations are taking place, these mutations. And it's been reported already in many countries across the world. And this variant is B.1.1.523. And they found it starting, it looks like July 14th, 2021. And they've only found 533 cases as of August 19th, but it's growing. It was reported in Russia and Germany. And they're looking at the U.S. and Australia. So let's go down here to the conclusion. Here we go. Let's see. The authors of this study have reported that the B.1.1.523 variant harbors a new combination of concerned spike mutations that are present in many currently circulating VOCs. So that's COVID-19. Many of these mutations are concerning and are associated with the evasion of immune protection. This is critical as these developments could challenge the effectiveness of available vaccines. Excuse me for a second. More research is required to determine this transmissibility of the variant, which would assist in the development of preventive strategies to stop the further spread of this strain. So that's the problem, right? That's the problem. If this strain, they don't know how transmissible it is. And it's called the R number, right? R0, R1, R2. They want it, if it's R1 or below, it's not so bad. If it gets above R1, that means it has the ability to propagate throughout a community. They don't know yet. But if it is highly transmissible and it starts becoming more of a dominant strain, and if it's true that it can escape the vaccination protection, then we're back to square one, right? In developing a vaccine. And then we're back to we're looking at lockdowns and all sorts of things. So one of the reasons why, it's important for people that have accessibility to the vaccine to be vaccinated. B, it's important to get the vaccine out to the rest of the world, right? Is that the longer we have a lot of people that are unvaccinated, the higher level of mutation we get. And we never know. Most mutations are not beneficial. But all it takes is one, right? And when you're looking at millions and millions of viruses, because that's what happens, right? There's just millions of them, that the chances of mutation are up. So we need to do our best to, get the number of cases down as fast as we can, and just keep an eye on things. And I don't like surprises, so I'm keeping an eye on what's going on in the world and where we're at with the virus and with cases and hospitalizations and all that stuff, because that all gets factored into my risk assessment for how I interface with the general public. So, and at this point, I think Sacramento's doing fairly well. So I wear my mask when I'm out in public. Obviously, if I'm at a coffee shop and I'm drinking coffee, I'm not wearing my mask. And I sit outdoors as much as I can, which, as long as the wind's blowing, it's fairly safe, right? So and it's just something I just take in in my risk assessment. So let's see what else is going on here. All right. So something else I thought was pretty cool. And this has to do with kids. I've got some friends that have kids that are, I think, what's the cutoff age? 15, 12, something like that. If they're younger than 12, they shouldn't have the vaccine, right? So there's some good news that's come out. And let me get this up on the monitor here so you can see it a little bit better. There we go. Do I need to increase the font a little bit? I will do. So let me do that real quick. There we go. So what's it saying here? It says COVID-19 vaccine for 5 to 11-year-olds is safe and shows robust antibody response, Pfizer says. So the trials are underway. This is phase 2 out of 3, and they're seeing great results. They've got one more phase to go. And so let's see here. What have we got? Where did I see this? Participants' immune responses were measured by looking at neutralizing antibody levels in their blood and comparing those levels to a control group of 16 to 25-year-olds who were given a 2-dose regimen with the larger 30 microgram dose. And they compared well. So that's very, very cool. There are no instances of myocarditis, the type of heart inflammation. Yeah, we don't want that. Let's see, what else does it say? It's currently approved for people aged 16 or older, and it's authorized for use in people aged 12 to 15, right? And it's expecting more data as soon as the fourth quarter of this year. And if we look at what happens next, what does it say? Let's see, Dr. Scott Gottlieb, a former FDA commissioner and current Pfizer board member, has said a vaccine for children ages 5 to 11 could be available by Halloween. So there's that. Okay. And I know that I have some friends with young children, and it's a concern for them. So that at the moment, some of my friends are keeping their children at home, and they're, doing the online schooling. And then some of them are in school. And I know that schools are seeing a very difficult time with seeing cases of COVID-19 showing. Hey, Gary, welcome aboard. Thanks for saying hi. It's good to see you. I'm glad you're able to make it to the live version. So, and if you're still on here with me, that's awesome. And please feel free to throw in your 2 cents worth. Everybody's opinion is welcome. So it's great to have you aboard tonight. So it's good news for the kids. All right. There's one more thing about COVID that I want to take a look at before we move on to something else this evening. And it's something that, here's another one of my friends. Hey, Cheryl, welcome aboard. It's nice to have you here. Right now I'm in the middle of, not in the middle, I'm in the last part of my COVID section. We're still talking about COVID-19 and what's going on. So let me go ahead and toss this up here. This last little bit that I want to talk about in regards to COVID, because we focus a lot on hospitalizations and ICU and death and all that stuff. But there's a bigger story that needs to be looked at and talked about. And they're calling it long COVID. You can call it a lot of things, I suppose. Here, let me just, bye-bye. It's been nice knowing you. Okay. And do I need to font this up a little bit? Oh, a little bit. Let me make it just a little bit bigger. There we go. Okay. So, CNN likes to do a lot of crazy stuff. There we go. It's called long COVID. Long COVID problem might be bigger than we thought. Let's see here. A large study has revealed that 1 in 3 COVID-19 survivors have suffered symptoms 3 to 6 months after getting infected, with breathing problems, abdominal symptoms such as abdominal pain, change of bowel habit and diarrhea, fatigue, pain, anxiety, and depression among the most common issues reported. And, this has major ramifications in a lot of ways. I'm thinking along the lines of employment, and about, if I was talking to a good friend of mine, Fred, we have coffee every Wednesday morning, and we were talking about, the cost difference between you get the vaccine, and that's free. You go into the hospital, and that's not free, and it can be thousands of dollars before you're out of that hospital, right? And so if you just look at it from a cost benefit, getting that vaccine is a no-brainer because it's free, right? And, the data is showing that even if you get a breakthrough infection, that you're not going to land in the hospital if you've been vaccinated. So there's just all kinds of upsides to getting vaccinated here. But anyway, let's take keep taking a look and see what we've got here. They studied symptoms in more than 270,000 people recovering from COVID-19 and found that the 9 features of long COVID were detected by clinicians more frequently than those who had been hospitalized, and slightly more often in women. Now, isn't that interesting? I wonder why that would be. That's curious. The study did not explain what causes long COVID symptoms, how severe they are, or how long they will last. But it did show that people recovering from COVID were more likely to suffer long-term symptoms than those who had the flu. And so, if you remember back in the early days, a lot of people were trying to say that coming down with COVID-19 was just like getting the flu. And that is just not true. Over and over again, it's being shown that it is just not true. Let's see, what do we got here? The symptoms people experienced varied, and many patients experienced more than one. Older people and men were more likely to have breathing difficulties and cognitive problems, whereas young people and women reported more headaches, abdominal symptoms, anxiety, and depression. The authors stressed that although the number of such incidents was higher among the elderly and those with more severe initial illness, people who had suffered a mild disease, children, and young adults also experienced long COVID. So this is another thing that is so important to talk about, right? Even if you survive COVID, recovery may be quite long and extensive, and it may leave you with a long-term disability. So it's just not something to mess around with, right? Well, those are pretty nice gloves. Wait, is that a ripped glove? That's a ripped glove. Look at that. That is not safe. Well, I guess it's safe enough. But if you were working like with super hazardous, bioweapons and stuff, that glove's not okay. That is a ripped glove. They need new gloves. But anyway, maybe they can't afford new gloves. Maybe they have to recycle gloves. I don't know. But anyway. All right. COVID is no laughing matter. Not laughing at COVID. So, crazy stuff. Let's see. I've got a little comment here from Cheryl. What's she have? EEOC guidelines says treat long COVID like a disability for workplace accommodations. That's good to know. I hope that that information is getting out to businesses. I don't know how we would do that, but it's very important that people know their rights if they are experiencing long COVID for job protection and also medical disability, temporary disability insurance, which is it's not great, but once if you've got sick leave and it runs out, it's you need something, right? And most sick leaves, I think, are a week to 2 weeks, something like that. And a lot of employers don't like you out for more than a couple of days. And there are lots of businesses that do not still have health insurance for their employees. So, yeah, it's a big deal. EEOC guidelines says treat long COVID like a disability for workplace accommodations. That's pretty important. Well, that's good. I'm glad they're addressing it. That's super important. Super duper important. So, we've got, let's see, it's 7:36. We've passed the halfway point. So let me just again say hello to everyone. If you've not yet had a comment to say hello or to throw in, your 2 cents worth, and maybe it's even worth more than 2 cents. Could be. Feel free to drop something in the comment, and so we can share it with everybody. There's one last thing that I want to talk. Well, there's actually 2 last things I want to talk about. We may not get to the phone-in portion of tonight. The first thing I want to talk about is, where's my share screen button? There you are. There you are. Share screen here is different than share screen on Zoom. So, there we go. It's complicated. Okay. Debt limit. Debt limit. It's been in the news, right? And recently, President Biden just signed it into law, so it's no longer an issue. But let's take a look about what is this debt limit and why is it such an issue? Honestly, it's been around since World War I, but there's a lot of misunderstandings around it. So let's just look at this definition of the debt limit. The debt limit is the total amount of money that the United States government is authorized to borrow to meet its existing legal obligations, including Social Security and Medicare benefits, military salaries, interest on the national debt, tax refunds, and other payments. So the debt limit is not being increased so that we can spend more money. It's being increased so that we can meet our existing legal obligations, right? So that's what the big deal's about. Because if we don't meet those legal obligations, then we default. So if you're a homeowner and you don't pay your mortgage payment, you've defaulted on it. And there are consequences for that, right? And they're not always good consequences. So let's see what we got here. We got to make this a little bit bigger here. Much bigger, actually. There we go. The debt limit does not authorize new spending commitments. It simply allows the government to finance existing legal obligations that Congresses and presidents of both parties have made in the past, so that's why it's hard for me to understand why a political party, Republican or Democrat, happen to be the Republicans this time around, refuse to increase the spending limit. It makes no absolute sense. Now, I know in the past that a political party would try to use increasing the debt limit or debt ceiling, as it's called, as leverage for something they want. So we will vote to increase it if you do X, Y, and Z, right? So they try to use it as a negotiating tool. But it's ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous. Now, this is coming from the U.S. Department of the Treasury. Failing to increase the debt limit would have catastrophic economic consequences. It would cause the government to default on its legal obligations, an unprecedented in American history. That would precipitate another financial crisis and threaten the jobs and savings of everyday Americans, putting the United States right back in a deep economic hole, just as the country is recovering from the recent recession. So it just makes little sense to not increase it. So I'm really glad, because I think midnight was the deadline, right? So they just got it in under the wire, and I just don't understand why. It boggles my mind. It boggles my mind that people would play chicken on the American public. But, for the last couple of months, I've been saying that it seems like our elected officials are less interested in governing, and they're more interested in power. It's like they don't care about the American people right now. They're more interested in playing their political games and who has the power, who can do the one-upmanship, right? Hey, Dave, welcome. Isn't modern politics great? Well, funny you should say modern politics. Lately on Netflix, I just finished watching. It's a series of shows on different emperors from the Roman Empire. It was the first one was Commodus, and then they talked about Julius Caesar, and the last one was Caligula. And politics is politics, and people are people, and power is power. And it's absolutely phenomenal what happened in the Roman Empire, especially as they transitioned from a republic to an emperor system, an actual empire, from a republic to an empire. And then I was listening to a lecture this evening. It was an hour and a half long, something like that, on how the Roman Republic was structured before the emperor system came in. And it was very complicated, but the thrust of it was how much of the American system is based on the Roman system. And it was funny because he talked about, most of the people, our founding fathers, really came from the European, especially the British governmental system. And yet when they went to look at how do we structure something for the United States, they went to look at the Roman system. We look at the buildings that they built. And at the beginning of the lecture, they showed, like in Canada, their buildings, their governmental buildings are more based on the European style or the British style of building, of like their parliament and etc. But the American buildings are all styled after the Roman buildings. It's very much Roman here. There's lots of Roman symbolism throughout our national government. It's kind of weird. And looking at how there's not a whole lot changed. Not a whole lot has changed. So yeah, modern politics is great, but it's very, very similar to what happened in Rome and why it transitioned from being a republic to being an empire. And yeah, that maybe that's a topic for another show, because it's absolutely fascinating. So yeah, I don't know. Just I really wish that our elected officials would put the American people first, and they try to make it sound like they do. But do they? Do they really? I don't know. So tonight, before the show, I went looking for a saying that I didn't know who said it first. I'm just going to throw it up on the screen here. How many of you have heard this before? The best is the enemy of the good. And it comes from a guy named Voltaire. And the reason that this has been on my mind, and it has to do with the infrastructure discussion that's happening, because we've got two bills, right? We've got the bipartisan bill, and then we've got the big Build Back Better, or whatever it's called. I don't know what they call it, but it's the big infrastructure bill. It's like $3.5 trillion worth of infrastructure, and it's got all kinds of stuff in it. And 70% of Americans are behind it. They like it, right? But here's the problem. I remember during the Obama administration, we had the rise of the Tea Party, right? And they were very obstructionist. And once the House flipped to Republican, the Obama administration basically was hamstrung. There wasn't much they could do, if anything. Very obstructionist. Well, here we go. So now we got the Democrats. They're in the White House. They have a slim margin in the House. They have a slim margin in the Senate, right? But they control all three branches of government, right? Or two branches of government right now. Okay. The House progressives, Democrat progressives, there's like 100 of them. They've said that they will not pass the bipartisan infrastructure bill until they've been able to pass the big one, the 3.5 trillion one, right? And we've got two people. Now this is the House, right? But we've got two people in the Senate. We've got Christian what's her last name? Sinatra? No, I forget her last name. Anyway, she's from Arizona. And we got the other guy from West Virginia. And I think I can't remember their names right now because I'm really upset with them because it makes no sense what they're doing. But basically, they are saying that they will not vote for the big bill for money reasons, right? At least that's what the guy from West Virginia says. The senator from Arizona is not even saying why she's not going to vote for it. And then the House Republicans are saying we're not going to vote for the bipartisan one, which the Senate passed, but they're not going to pass it in the House unless they do the big one. So it's like at this point we're at all or nothing. They could pass the smaller bipartisan bill and get that started, right? Get those monies allocated and get them dispersed and get those projects going, and then work on the other one, the big bill. But they're not. They're playing the all or nothing game. And that's why the best is the enemy of the good. Now, I'm all for both bills. I am all for this infrastructure stuff. It's like the New Deal all over again. It's going to be this great influx of money into the hands of people that work. And that's how you generate an economy, right? You don't have an economy when people don't have money to spend. It makes no sense. So give them some money to spend and you start to get the economy rolling, right? Not only that, but we need some infrastructure repair. And it's got more than just bridges and roads and things like that. It's got childcare, right? It's got internet access. It's got all kinds of groovy stuff, groovy stuff that Americans want. 70% of the people are behind all this. And yet our elected officials are playing games in Washington, D.C. It's very disheartening, you know? And yes, it would be sad if the $3.5 trillion bill didn't get passed. You know, of course, it can be negotiated down. That's the whole point. When you put forward a big bill like that, it's got lots of dollars, right? You do it big with the idea that you're going to negotiate down to something that everyone will accept. That's how it should work, right? I remember at one point, you know, the art of politics is the art of negotiation. That's one saying. There's another saying that says politics is the art of the possible. You know, so sometimes, you know, you might shoot for something that you just can't do. It's not possible for whatever reason. And it's okay to shoot for that. It's absolutely okay, as long as you're realistic about it and you've got a plan to then get at least something. So I'm wondering whether or not this is a case of the best is the enemy of the good, right? I don't know. They were supposed to, the vote was scheduled for today. The thought was that Speaker Pelosi probably would not allow the vote to go onto the floor because, and I'm talking about the bipartisan bill, which is a smaller bill, because it would not pass. And that would not be a good thing to have it not pass. Hang on a second. What have I got here? Germany. Hey, Uli, welcome aboard. Germany just voted, and it's all about building a wiring coalition. I'm not sure. Did that spell check? Did it change that word? Is it really wiring? Yeah. So Angela Merkel is no longer the president of Germany, chancellor of Germany. She was been there for 16 years. 16 years, and but they said, okay, it's time for the Christian Democrats. I voted by mail. Really? That's awesome. That is so cool, Uli. That is so cool. And it's a working coalition. So it should read, Germany just voted, and it's all about building a working coalition. So it's like it's the Social Democrats and the Green Party, I think, are the two parties that are trying to build a coalition, if I'm not mistaken, over there in Germany to make it work. The other thing that Germany did that is so cool that it's almost hard to believe is that they purchased a bunch of housing, publicly owned, not privately owned housing, purchased a bunch of it and have turned it over into public housing. That is just amazing to me. And the Free Liberals, so it's like three parties trying to build a coalition. Well, I hope they do, because if I think they're given a certain amount of time, because I know Israel had this problem. They're given a certain amount of time to build a coalition, and if they can't build a coalition, then they have to do another vote, right? That's that parliamentary system over there, which I prefer that system, but yeah. Okay, so it'd be a three-party coalition. Well, that's cool. It'd be cool, and it'd be interesting to see the direction that takes Germany in, right? Germany has been, in a lot of ways, the backbone of the European Union. They're a very strong country. In many, many ways, I remember when, during our previous presidential administration, as we were beginning to pull away from the global community, become more isolationist, Angela Merkel really stepped up. Like there's this vacuum of global leadership, and she stepped up, right, to maybe fill those shoes. So it's going to be interesting to see the role that Germany plays going forward. Very, very interesting. And here's a comment from my friend Dave that I skipped over here. Let's see what he said. Unfortunately, some problems require big solutions, such as climate change. Yes, and we can't even get good, let alone best. We can't even get good, let alone best. Well, all I'm going to say about that one is that climate change is a global problem. It's going to take all of the countries working together to really solve this. And so far, they're not doing it. And we're in a world of hurt, and it's just going to get worse because no one's doing much of anything right now. The budget problem is we have to own that one. That's just a United States problem, right? So that's the only difference I can see, Dave. We have the opportunity to at least pass the small bipartisan bill. We can at least get that. But if it's an all or nothing strategy, then we might not get either one. So the American people get the big goose egg, and we all lose out. We get nothing. And as we get closer and closer to 2022, people don't want to vote on things because they want to get reelected, and so they don't want to have a decision or a stand or a policy that they've supported that may reflect on their reelection possibilities. So it's really hard as we approach 2022 to get anything done. And then if the Senate flips, if the House flips, then we're really up a wall. We're up a creek without a paddle, And so now's the time to get something done. And so, I would just love to see that bipartisan bill get passed, and then really hunker down and start working on that on the big boy. Build better, build. What's it called? Build back better, build. Better build back. I don't know what it's something like that. It's the BBB. Hey, that's what I'll call it. I don't remember what the words are. Just remember the initials. The BBB. Better Business Bureau. Something like that. Anyway, I don't know. It's my old boss, Frances Grace Child, did not like incrementalism. That's what she calls it. Incrementalism, where you just you chip away and chip away and chip away and chip away and chip away, and then finally you get where you want to be, right? But is that the best is the enemy of the good? Does that mean that if you can't get the little bit, you don't get anything? Or, I mean, if you can't get the big piece, you're not going to accept the little piece? It seems to be that's the philosophy there. So I don't know. We'll have to wait and see. And if you have feelings one way or the other, I really encourage you to contact your congressperson in the House or in the Senate. Let them know how you feel, because they're supposed to be responsible to us. So, yeah, Dave, I agree. Some progress is better than no progress. I agree. I absolutely agree. So, we've got, hopefully at some point, Washington, D.C. decides to govern and stop playing games and really hunker down and do what's best for the American people. And I know they probably think that's what they're doing. But as my old manager at Macy's used to say, the only way you know whether you're doing a good job is to ask someone, right? Am I doing a good job? And I know that there are some people talking about recalling certain elected officials because of their obstructionist. The two senators, one from West Virginia and one from Arizona, Joe Manchin, West Virginia guy, and then the one from Arizona is Kristen something or other, begins with an S, I think. And this is her first term, from what I understand. And they're actually talking about not voting her out of office when she comes up for re-election, because they're not happy with what she's doing. So, and those are some things that are up right now. And as we are in a representative democracy, and so if we have feelings about it, I encourage you to contact your elected officials and let them know how you feel. They may decide otherwise, that they know better than we do. And I know that is a political problem sometimes, where our elected officials feel like they know better than us because they're the professionals, right? And we're just the people. What do we know? We're uneducated. We don't know what's going on. We don't, But we are representative democracy. So we have a say. So anyway, we just keep plugging along, putting one foot in front of the next. Tomorrow, it's going to be a better day than today. That's my outlook. And got to look at it. I got to look at it that way, and take the long look at history that, there may be years of trouble, but there'll be years of goodness. So it all evens itself out in the long run. Anyway, let me go ahead and pull this bad boy down. Where are you here? There you are. All right. We had no call-in show tonight. Hopefully we'll have one next week. And I have no idea what we're going to talk about. Maybe we'll talk about Rome and the United States, similarities and differences, and things to be on the lookout for, especially after the previous administration and what happened. And it looks a lot like what happened with Julius Caesar in a lot of ways. So, yeah. And if you want to check out the Netflix show, just so you know, there's some nudity and there's some violence. So it's probably not everybody's cup of tea, but it's history. And it's very interesting history. So I'll leave you with that. It's been great. Thank you again, everyone that has been a part of tonight's show. I've enjoyed it. I've enjoyed our little discussion. Uli, thanks for the update from Germany. They're doing some good things over there. Really good things over there. So that's encouraging. It's really encouraging. So we just got to stay the course. Remember to take care of each other. We are our brother's keeper and our sister's keeper. And to strive for the common good. So have a great weekend, and I'll see you again next week.